Hello everyone, I'm Mark Griffiths from Wrexham AFC. It's unseasonably sunny in Wrexham and the season may be over, but the content keeps on coming at you like the mighty River Gwenvro crashing over the rapids, the foam roaring. Does foam roar? I suppose it depends how many chemicals have been dumped into it, or if it hits a shopping trolley, both of which are feasible, of course, with the Gwenny, one of the great forces of nature. Anyway, this is the AskWxm podcast, where we improvise introductions and then regress it, and also where we answer your questions from the hashtag AskWxm, AskWxm, on Twitter and Blue Sky. Please keep them coming in and I'll keep answering them. But let's get cracking straight away, shall we? And our first one is, hang on a second, there we are, from the estimable Chip Pate, saying, oh, panic's starting to creep in. What do we do for the next 97 days? No Wrexham AFC, no Mark, Mia and Andy, no pies, at least here. Oh my gosh, that's awful. Professor Griffiths et al. Desperately need your advice. Well, firstly, Gareth replies, quite rightly, saying, Chip, don't panic. Just keep searching the internet. You'll find wild rumours during the summer that'll keep us all entertained. And we also need to get our alarm clocks ready, depending on where you are for the Aussie Down Under tour. Well done, Gareth. Wise words. You've calmed Chip, I hope. You've certainly calmed me. I'm terrified at the thought of this huge empty void opening up before us like a great pair of slippers with their headlights on, and I'm certainly desperately looking for things to fill my time before I can go back to a Wrexham match. At the moment, my thoughts are revolving around the 8 words, tuck problem chimp to the ideal home show, but we'll see if that comes to fruition or not. Well, the thing is, Gareth is right as well. Oh, well, there will be loads and loads of mad transfer speculation to keep us entertained, most of which will be nonsense. Heels24 following up on that, saying, is it too early to start thinking about transfers for next year? Just saying. Right. No, 100% not too early. Just please remember the sort of reality check about all of this. Is it too early? Well, Phil Parkinson and his recruitment team will have been thinking about this and talking about this to the owners and the hierarchy at the club for months now. What do we do if we go up? Who are we targeting? What do we do if we don't go up? Who would we target? It's pleasing to see the sort of level of logic and organisation and deal driving at the club now, when you see so many clubs, including us in the past, who have not had a strategy, have not had a plan, and have, as a result of that, really rather fallen foul of knee-jerk signings that don't work out. When I keep saying, I know it's a phrase I keep saying a lot, Phil Parkinson's got a fantastic strike rate when it comes to transfers. He most definitely has, and it's because there's an excellent structure around him. Chris Johnson on the scouting side, all the way through. There's a thoroughness and a refusal to panic and an awareness that you, just because you've got a lot of money doesn't mean you have to spend it. You need to spend it wisely, and they will know already who they want, and if they can't get that player for whatever reason, who is the next option. They'll have known that for a long time. So is it too early? No, it is not. Should you therefore listen to all the stuff people say? I'd say no. Or if you do listen to it, take it with a huge pinch of salt. Not that long ago, Wrexham leaked quite a lot when it came to transfers. I think inevitably, and this is not a criticism of being run by the fans, if you can't get dream owners like Rob and Ryan, I would want my club to be run by the fans. So it's certainly not a criticism of that, but the more people in positions of authority who might go and tell their mates down the pub, I know that's a real simplification of fan-owned clubs, and certainly wasn't happening at the very top end, but there were enough people around to be able to get some info, meant that transfers are rarely a surprise, and that's always a disadvantage for the club, because if people know who you're after, they're also aware those players are available, they might go after them. If it becomes public knowledge, selling clubs might try and start a bit of an auction to raise the price. So whichever way you cut it, keeping your cards close to your chest is an important thing. So I'd argue, firstly, an awful lot of the gossip about transfers will be just that, gossip, putting 2 and 2 together and making 8. I mean, you'll see an awful lot, because the uninformed majority of the media don't get what's going on with Wrexham, and as a result of that, they will talk about stuff like, oh yeah, well, we buy celebrity players, old players who are finished, but are big names because it helps us sell shirts, and absolute rubbish. If we do that, why is it that we got such a good hit rate? Like I said, we have brought in experienced players because, hey, guess what? Teams are interested in having experienced players because they've done it before and they tend to be high quality. But all the older players we've brought in have given us superb service and have been maybe the cleverest signings. Foster, Fletcher, for example, McLean. I mean, these are magnificent players. Rodriguez gets us over the line. So don't listen to a lot of the gossip when they just think, okay, let's find a well-known, superannuated footballer who's out of contract. Let's say he's going to Wrexham. It used to be, they're going to go to the MLS for their retirement, they're going to go to the J League for their retirement. Now it's, they're going to go to Wrexham for their retirement, get some easy money. Championship's not easy money, and it's all nonsense. So be wary of all that sort of talk. Some accurate stuff does come out. I think there you've got to ask yourself if it's a good journalist, like, say, Richard Sutcliffe coming out with it, or someone like Rich Williams who's going to back it up. If they're saying it, it's very, very likely to be accurate. If it's people who are just looking to get hits or views or whatever by spreading stories round, well, if they're wrong, they've got your attention, they've got what they wanted out of you. And if they're right and they're not actually, sort of in part of that more traditional media, then you've got to ask whether they're hurting the club and knowing that they are in some cases. Anyway, speculation is fine, thinking about it is fine. Don't expect to know what's actually going on until it happens. So I think that's probably the best advice, to be honest with you. Now then, sticking on the transfer thing, Brian says, are there any key players that would need to be re-signed over the summer? Just remember the Okonkwo uncertainty from last year. So, I reckon we have 6 players out of contract. And they fit in mostly to specific categories. So Owen O'Connell, I understand, although there is talk that there may be some extension that's been triggered one way or the other. Stephen Fletcher, he's an interesting one. Of course, 2 years ago, he said he was thinking about retiring when Dundee United got relegated. And now here he is 2 years later. And hopefully we'll be able to convince him to carry on being a legend off the bench. 3 goalkeepers, Mark Howard, Liam Hall, Brad Foster, and Josh Adam. So, young prospects, goalkeepers. Be interested to see exactly what Wrexham want to do with the goalkeeping situation. We certainly have got a couple of very strong characters in Okonkwo and Burton. And for me, Howard clearly perfectly capable of doing the job for us next season. Just depends on what his specific plans are, doesn't it? So those are the players, as I understand, who aren't under contract. Everybody else is under contract. Now, obviously, that also leads to the retained list. So we have, hang on a second, I can't read who sent this message in. They're saying, just a thought for today. Last year, Wrexham posted the released and retained list concurrent with the Vegas trip. And a few days after the last game, so wondering when that will be. And Rathbone's warming blanket accurately looked up and found the answer. I think I figured out the timing. There's apparently in the NFL rule about players whose contracts are ending having to be notified about contract decisions by the 3rd Saturday in May. That makes a little more sense if it lined up with last year's trip. 100% correct. And if you're watching it on video, here is the regulation which says there, the 3rd Saturday in May in the final year of your contract is when a club needs to tell you whether they intend to offer you another contract or whether they are releasing you. And you can release players before then, and the retained list announcement isn't as big a thing as it used to be. Not so long ago, you'd wait desperately to see who's the list of players we're keeping, but the club now is in a much stronger position. The players we want to keep to a great extent, are players that are on contracts, aren't they? And if you look at those 6 I mentioned, I mean, Fletcher and Howard are both, you know, at the stage in their career where they're probably wanting to have a 1-year contract themselves, as will the club. You know, they don't know how they'll feel at the end of the season, what their levels will be, so that's understandable. Hall, Foster and Adam are young lads, so again, it's understandable that, you know, they might assess it at the end of a season. O'Connell is the only really sort of, shall we say, senior player in peak years. He's 29, who you'd think, you know, you'd think we'd tie him down, but like I said, I'm not sure whether we actually have, and it just hasn't been announced. I don't know. Anyway, that is correct. The only exceptions are teams in the playoffs. They get an extension, and they have to announce. Well, I say an extension. 4 days after their last game in the playoffs is when they have to announce it. So if you're losing the semis, essentially the same date, to be honest. Keeping on the transfers, Daniel Stroud. Father, how are you? What is your over-under for the price you expect us to pay for our biggest signing this summer? I think we'll spend 8 figures. I think we'll spend 8 figures on anyone. No, I don't think we will. I think the key thing for the club is value for money. I've seen a lot of people talking about us going for a lot of free transfers. I don't think there's a compulsion for us to do that, because we have, as the last lot of accounts show, I mean, fantastic financial situation where you get an awful lot of clubs who run at 90% or more of their revenue going out in wages, sometimes over 100% scarily. That's the road to ruin. We're, is it 40 odd percent, which is crazily low. Our wages went up in between the last 2 accounts by, was it 4 million, but as a percentage of our revenue went down about 30%. So that's a hell of a positive place to be. We've got a lot of wriggle room should we wish to invest heavily in players. But the thing is, I mean, it's not just putting money into the club, it's getting bang for your buck. And the owners, Phil Parkinson, everybody have been really good at making sure we don't pay over the odds. There are transfers that haven't happened because clubs have thought we'll apply a Wrexham tax, ask for a bit extra. Well, that deal's dead then. We don't go along with it. Players who look for extra pay, or their agents do, we're not going to break wage structures. So I don't think we'll go for an 8-figure fee, personally. Only a personal opinion. Because I think value might lie for what we're looking to achieve a little bit lower than that. I'm also not convinced that we'll be looking around at free transfers, although it has to be said, some of our very best players have been free transfers. But that's been more about being smart and knowing the market and having a manager that players respect, so that when bizarrely, despite starting, should I say, over 30 games in the Championship in the last 3 seasons, Matty James, A, isn't given a contract by Bristol City, and B, isn't picked up by anyone else when the season has started, that when Phil Parkinson comes along and says, come and train with us, I want to have a look, see if your standards actually are what they always have been, James is going to say yeah, and we're going to bring in a player who for me was one of the best players in the division last season for nothing. But it's that sort of deal. I don't think we go into things thinking, oh, let's look at the free transfers, let's try and construct a side on the cheap. I don't think for a second we do that, but I do think we have a very smart eye for a bargain. Now then, on to commentary and stuff. Dan D, any indication how a championship will affect commentary next season? I won't need iFollow since championship games are readily available here through other avenues. Wondering how this will impact home commentary. Anyone know? Well, my understanding of this is that the Sky TV deal over here has a bigger influence now in what is carried on iFollow. So if this makes sense, if I'm right, I think for me, Mia, Andy, I think our day-to-day, game-to-game experience will be the same. We will turn up, we will do stuff, we will commentate. However, if the game is being shown live in a territory, iFollow can't stream video. So if Our Game is shown in the UK. I Follow can't stream video, and so instead will stream audio only. And whereas outside Britain there's not been audio only streams, my understanding is that there will be if a game is shown live. So if a game is on Paramount or wherever in the States, we are not allowed to stream the video. We are if it's in Australia, and Australia aren't covering it live, but we can have the audio commentary available in the States. I hope that makes sense, and I hope I'm right. That's how I'm understanding it. Also, from a commentary point of view, I just love this. Natalie was at the celebration last Sunday. So here we are at the Kairas. Place is buzzing, but all I want to know is, are we sat behind where our commentaries are from? Nonetheless, what a great view. Well, I can tell you from that picture, yes, you are pretty much bang on where we are, over the halfway line, halfway up the back tier of the Wrexham Lager stand. And somebody put a picture, in fact it was Big Hands, I Know You're the One, indeed, said, yep, looks like you're pretty close to Mark, Mia and Andy's normal spot. And if you're watching it on video, they've taken a picture of the Wrexham Lager stand from the other side. There is a circle, which I don't know if that is the person sending the message or not, but our commentary point is there's a white line across the front of a desk. That's the commentary position, not the written press. They're further down and to the sides, but we are there. And there is, on the very right side of it, a little sign underneath that white stripe, which is our desk. Andy sits there. Next to him is Mia. Next to her is me. So we are the last 3 seats on that bench. So the person who was circled, if you can see it, is just about 3 seats further along. But yes, pretty much that's where we are. Absolutely. Come on, say hello. Let's have a look at the next tweet. Okay, now Steve Kernsley says, earlier this week we rewatched season 1 of Welcome to Wrexham. That episode where folks are talking about firing Parky was kind of painful to watch. See you next year in the championship. Well said, Steve. That astounded me in the latter part of last season. People were going mad. I guess it just shows that people go crazy about sport. And to be fair, they go crazy about things that they're passionate about. But yeah, let's not assume that we know more than Phil Parkinson about football. Hey, I don't think that's a winning move. He's an outstanding manager, and okay, even outstanding managers can have rough periods. But wow, 4 years in, he's not had his yet, and that is quite something, isn't it? Oopsie daisy. Right. Wrexham fan talking now about the Lincoln game. Happy to see Tom O'Connor on. What a stalwart from the National League to now. I've got to say, I mean, Tom O'Connor, football seasons feel like they last an eternity, don't they? Us beating Wycombe in the first game of the season, goodness me, it feels like a different lifetime. And I think that's illustrated by the fact there are some players who played big parts in our season. That you sort of... It's easy to almost forget that. Tom O'Connor wasn't in our side for the run-in, but the guy has been massive for us this season, has played so well at centre-back and was key at the start of the season for us in that position and was a regular. So, yeah, absolutely. Tom O'Connor is a class act, and it's not just the fact that he's been there with us for so long. It's the fact that he's been such a high-quality player. And when we brought him in the first January transfer window under Phil Parkinson, gosh, he was class. And if he hadn't picked up injuries when he first arrived, well, who knows what we might have done. He might just have been able to help us close that gap to Stockport County. Who knows? But he's a class act without question. And like I said, it's easy to forget that this season he has started 25 of our 46 league games. So, wow, not bad. Played in 35 games in all competitions in total. He's been a massively important player for us. And interesting fact, which central defensive trio has let in the fewest goals per minute? It was when O'Connell, Scarr and O'Connor played together. Now, admittedly, it was just under 4 matches worth of minutes. 337 minutes, 2 goals. Well, it does tell you something. And in terms of minutes on the pitch anyway, well, next most successful is no huge surprise. It's the back three that took us almost to the end of the run in. Clwyth, O'Connell and Brunt letting a goal every 138 minutes. Not bad at all, eh? And then not far behind, they also put in the most minutes as a trio, if you see what I mean, but only 130 minutes behind, so what, a game and a half, is Clwyth, O'Connell and O'Connor. So O'Connor played a lot of this season in the team and played a huge part in our success, and we should be grateful to him for that, and he'll be useful next season as well, of course. Back to back, Jason, Wrexham Phoenix says, is Parky the only person to get a suspension this season? You know what, I thought he was, which, as your laughing emoji suggests, is somewhat amusing. He isn't. But, you know, we've had very few suspensions. So the only suspensions that we've had were when we hit the 5 yellow card limit. We had, hang on a second, who was it? We had somebody suspended. And then, I'll get back to you in a second, Dobson and McLean were both suspended at the 11 card limit. That was at Burton. But the player suspended against Exeter, I think I remember now who it was, but I'm going to be careful in case I slander them. It was, talk amongst yourselves while I double check. It was, oh, I was wrong. It was Andy Cannon against Exeter. So 3 players have each been suspended for 1 game. Phil Parkinson was suspended for 1 game. Naughty Parky. Larry Sheridan, I like this. Is there a last match tradition to be cheeky and wear costumes? I've seen an astronaut at Lincoln game, a couple of clowns, and the Stay Puffed Marshmallow Man in the stands. Looks like a good time. Well, it certainly was, wasn't it? Not as such, but Wrexham did it in our very last game in the Football League before relegation to the National League, which, of course, ironically, was 17 years to the day from that match against Lincoln last week. And it was at Lincoln. Isn't that bizarre? So there was a sort of dark humour fancy dress party, and so then we got to have a proper fun fancy dress party. Football fans going in fancy dress or daft is not totally weird. Please look up the guy who goes to Blythe Spartans games with a toaster gaffer taped to his head. Yeah, not bad, huh? And in the 80s, I think a lot of that sort of culture came to the surface, and there were lots of people who would do fun things at matches. But no, I wouldn't say it's a last day tradition necessarily, but I think it's something that might become that with Wrexham, in all honesty. Oh, the Stay Puffed Marshmallow Man, by the way, is a thing in Britain, but Stay Puffed Marshmallows aren't. The reason we know them is Ghostbusters, but as a brand, it means nothing to us. Sherry, hi Sherry, says, well done Ryan Longman after scoring. So chuffed to see him get the goal. Brilliant. Can't wait to see what he does next season for us. Well, I mean, yeah, because we bought him from the Championship. He was doing a good job in the Championship, and heck, that guy is brought in so that he is ready to hit the ground running in the Championship. You're absolutely right. Same with Rodriguez, same with Smith. He brought those players in to get us over the line, but also to carry on performing. I think Longman, you can just see his technique is so good. What game was it? Bristol Rovers, I think, wasn't it? Where he had a heavy touch. He had a chance to get a shot off, and he had a really heavy touch. And that stuck in my mind because he doesn't have heavy touches usually, does he? He can receive the ball while moving at speed, and his touch is fantastic. He's a proper technical player, and his ability, as Barnett does as well, to rip crosses in when it seems the fullback's got close and has blocked off the view. Yeah, I love Longman. He's such a technical player. He's exciting, and yeah, he'll I'm sure enjoy the Championship when he returns to it after his little 6-month sojourn. Chip Pate again says, now if you don't like politics, look away now for a moment. At a time in the US when people who know absolutely nothing are running and destroying everything, I don't know why I laughed then, Wrexham AFC is a shining example of the success that comes when experts do what they do best. Others stay out of their way and all work together, guided by virtue and purpose. And I think, Chip, you have utterly nailed that. You're 100% correct. The owners, the best thing they've done is appoint exceptionally well and then trust those people. And they weren't just saying the right thing when they said, we know nothing about football, we want to appoint experts to do the job for us and trust them. They were saying the right thing. It went down fantastically well, but it was also the smartest thing you'd do, isn't it? Why come in and try and run something when you have no expertise in it? They've lent their expertise and their skills, and they've clearly been on a crash course and have picked up so much about running a football club. But it's that intelligence and willingness to release your ego and let other people make big decisions and just trust you've appointed the right people, and to just have the overview and obviously the final say on big things. But that's the genius of their ownership. People talk about all sorts of things linked to celebrity, and I always say about the brilliant, unique thing they've done is turn their celebrity into currency for us. But it's also just that superb basic intelligence to say, recruit well, let those people do their jobs. Absolute basic business genius. Diane P293 says, not a question, just an observation. I'm a relatively new football fan from Canada. I love to see the tremendous thanks and respect the players show their fans each and every game, especially at away games. Never see that in North American professional sports. Love it. Yes, it is a particular feature of British, football, certainly. And you do see often, if players are walking off the pitch, say they've lost and they're upset, you will often see managers or players basically say, no, you're not walking off the pitch, get over there and thank the fans, And as you say quite rightly, away fans in particular, who may have made a fair old journey, made the financial sacrifice to go to the game, whatever the outcome, tend to be, sort of given thanks to afterwards. And generally, that's a positive thing. You occasionally see people waiting back to have a go at a team they've done badly, but generally I'd say not. It's interesting, the politics around it. Jurgen Klopp, when he was at Liverpool, at one of his early home games, he did something which he never did again, which is very common in Germany. So in Germany, I would say they make a little bit more of an elaborate show of it for home fans. And it's common in Germany for all the players and coaches to line up on the edge of the area holding hands and to either run to the home fans, do whatever, slide on the floor, or just get them cheering by raising their hands, a sort of mob approach to the Paul Mullen fist pumping. And they do that regardless of the outcome. Now, Liverpool played West Bromwich Albion in a Premier League game. This is one of Klopp's early home games. They drew, and they were expected to win. I'm pretty sure this is a game I watched on TV, which sort of blew my mind a bit, because it was one of the most one-sided, easy wins you've ever seen. And then a goal in at the end and drew 2-2, and you think, how on earth was that a draw? And so the local fans were disappointed. Klopp took his players there. And I think it's a genuine gesture of, we appreciate you, thank you very much for coming and supporting us and spending your money on us. But it didn't go down well, because the local fans saw it as a poor result, and then the players come as if they're, in the fans' view, celebrating. And local fans tend to be more clued up and aware of nuance than a lot of fans, and they didn't like it, and Klopp didn't do it again. He realised that it didn't translate in Britain. Another thing I noticed happens in the Bundesliga in Germany is they'll like, when a home team score, they'll announce this all amped up, and they won't say the player's last name. And then the crowd will shout it. So, Bayern Munich, Brian Tharagoff, that's a gag for us La Liga fans. Bayern Munich score, Thomas Müller scores, and the announcer will go, ein Tor for Thomas! And then all the crowd go, Müller! And it's great. But I always think, it looks great, but they do it regardless, it seems, pretty much of the result and the outcome or the situation, which is brilliant, and I think sums up fandom really well. But I'm struggling to imagine that happening in Britain if you're losing 3-0 at home to, Morecambe. Let's say Morecambe. You're losing 3-0 at home to Morecambe, and you get a consolation goal, and the announcer starts going, and the goal scored by Stephen, and how many people are going to say Fletcher? Not in those circumstances in Britain, I'm afraid. Steve says, personal end of season observation on defending. I prefer Scar at least starting over Owen O'Connell. It just feels there have been less stressful events since Scar's been starting. Curious where this will go next season. Yes, I mean, my first thought is we have two very, very high quality players there in the heart of our back three to choose from. Remember I said something about Parkinson being good at recruitment? Yeah, I'll stand by that. Yeah, I think two excellent players. I mean, it's fascinating for me. We brought in so many players last summer, and I can't help thinking, watch out for a repeat next summer or season, or at least see if we start off with this intention. We brought in so many good players with loads of championship experience, players who had excelled in the championship last season, but we stuck with the promotion team. And Scar was one of those that go into away matches or away reporters coming to us who'd watched a lot of championship football last season and seen Scar for Plymouth was saying he's one of the best centre-backs in the championship. But he can't get in your team. What's gone wrong with him? And it's like, nothing. It's just, O'Connell is playing superbly. Cleworth is. O'Connor is. And so Scar couldn't make his way in. I think Scar suffered a little bit from lack of continuity this season. But having said that, I mean, you could just see his quality, wasn't it? Those last 2.5 games, he was remarkably good, wasn't he? You really could see the top championship centre-back. But he wouldn't have played in those games if O'Connor hadn't picked up that injury. And O'Connor deserves huge, huge credit. He's played exceptionally well, and he's earned that right to start all those matches. O'Connell's great. I don't mean about stressful moments. There have been about 3 away games where there have been errors by O'Connell that have been costly. Totally accept that. I do think that's par for the course of centre-backs. Centre-backs make mistakes. And that's life, isn't it, really? But we've got 2 very, very high-quality players there. I don't think there are any problem playing in the championship. And the other thing is, I'm talking a lot about recruitment. I do feel Phil Parkinson, like I said, has got a plan on how he wants his team to play. He brings in the types of players we need, not just positionally, but in terms of style of player. And that central player in the 3 is really important, and something which until the last 3 games I would have said O'Connell most definitely has an advantage in is use of the ball. He'll step in, he'll intercept, he'll spray diagonals, he'll look to play passes to split the lines, and he's a progressive user of the ball. Now, I didn't think Scar was so much progressive, but not as accurate. But Scar's passing in these 2.5 games have been sensational. So that fascinated me, because that's something I didn't see so much in him, if I'm honest, until then. So that's really interesting, isn't it? Like I say, I just think we're exceptionally lucky. Well, no, we're not lucky. We planned it, we executed it, and now we get the benefit. Not bad. 2 top players in that position. Hang on, sorry, beg your pardon, pressed the wrong button. Now, Leapin' Lupus says, what's a starfish goalkeeper? Good question. Right, and I do bang on about this. It's a technique of goalkeeping which really in Britain was popularised in the 90s by Peter Schmeichel, who was a great keeper, played for Denmark, won the European Championship, played for Man United, the great Alex Ferguson team. His son, Kasper Schmeichel, is a stalwart for Denmark and Leicester when they won the league. And Peter Schmeichel basically brought in this technique, which was known more for handball goalkeepers. Handball sport that's pretty big in Europe, not big in Britain, where basically, because players are able to throw the ball, you've got much more chance of scoring from close in. But you, as I understand handball, you may get a little more time as a goalkeeper to set yourself while they wind up the throw. So handball goalkeepers tend to, rather than try to respond by reflexes, which is the traditional goalkeeping style in football, or to sort of anticipate which direction it's going, they make themselves big. And one of the phrases used for this is starfish. For starfishing. So imagine a starfish with its limbs all sticking out. That's what the keeper does. The keeper comes, attacks the ball, and spreads arms up above their shoulders, legs out, so they make like a big sort of Scottish flag, if you will, the starfish, and then they are covering a lot of the goal and there's a chance that the ball's going to hit them. I must say, I'm making it sound unscientific deliberately, because you are, when you try and do that, you are surrendering the possibility that you will respond to where the ball goes with your reflexes and make a save, a conscious save, because instead you're getting that greater coverage of the goal. So you're not likely to react as much. You don't tend to see starfish keepers then who can respond and move their arms and legs. They do sometimes. It's just a technique choice. For me, I think that it's an effective technique. The danger with it comes when goalkeepers don't apply it in the right point. You sometimes see, oh gosh, what game was it? There was a game where we caused lots of problems from corners, and the goalkeeper was coming for at corners and doing the starfish. No, no, that was not the right situation to do it. So if you pick the wrong situation to do it, and there are some goalkeepers who I feel are really a bit too married to that technique, you can make a mistake. But it can be a very effective technique when players are quite close in and probably should score. It can be a really effective technique to pull off the sort of save that wins you points, because you're denying teams that ought to have hit the net. Hope that made sense. Will Clem says, Mark, did you, Mia or Andy dress up today? Well, I went as my 9-year-old self. I had an old Wrexham shirt, the same type of shirt that I wore when I was 9, because Wrexham were in the Championship then, so I thought, this fits in nicely. And I put on it badges that I actually did wear when I was 9, and took my scarf, not my first ever scarf. My first ever scarf was knitted by my mum. It was a traditional football red and white bar scarf, so it's red panel, white panel, red panel. It was enormous, and it got me spotted on Match of the Day because it was so big. I was at a game and you could see me in the crowd. But I took my second Wrexham scarf, which was a sort of faux silk affair, which I'm going to be honest hasn't coped well with the passage of time. But yeah, so I went as my 9-year-old self. People just thought I was an old man in an old football kit, I think, if I'm perfectly honest with you. I'll take that, because I was. Grady Bridges, talking about the Lincoln game, how come guys like Ashfield, Rev and McNicholas didn't get a look in when there's nothing to play for but pride? I hear what you're saying, but I think the attitude of Phil Parkinson and the squad all the way through was, this is still a serious game, we want to go for it. I've seen a few people talking about it and saying about getting to 90 points, and I got to say, I think that means a lot to people like me and fans who think, wow, what an achievement. I think maybe to managers as well, to an extent, when they're trying to quantify what they've achieved, but I think generally football people are not really looking at those sort of stats so much, more at the sort of, we are professionals, we don't knock it off after 45 games and just muck about and let Lincoln hammer us, because they've got professional pride. And don't you find as well, you'll watch a friendly and you turn up saying, I'm not that bothered, it doesn't matter if we lose, because the important thing is they get fit ready for the season. But once you start watching it, you want Wrexham to win. So it's that sort of mentality, isn't it? So yeah, I do take your point 100%, but they wanted to win. They wanted to finish the season properly, and that's why he picked that full-strength team. I do see your point, though. I do see your point, but I know it was just like, okay, we've done a brilliant job this season. We're professionals. Let's finish that job how we started it. Not relevant for this game, but could be in other situations as well. Okay, the integrity of the competition. What if Lincoln were playing to try and get in the playoffs and we decided to pick a celebratory team and give everyone a game? That would not gone down well with the teams who are vying with Lincoln if we essentially handed them a win. And that does happen in football. I'd also say, how would those players feel if they were sort of almost given a pity appearance rather than earning it, if you will? So yeah, it could backfire, couldn't it? Whereas sticking to the job isn't likely to, really. And the last one, Todd, I'm so glad you asked this, because I meant to talk about this in the commentary at Lincoln and I forgot. What's the history or story behind the Lincoln City FC crest and logo? It's pretty basic. It is pretty basic, but that's because it's medieval. Not the football club, fair play, they're not older than us. But Lincoln is a massively historic and beautiful city. And another thing I meant to talk about and didn't quite as much as I wanted to in the commentary, it's got glass-sided stands where I was in. And I just loved the fact that up on the hill is Lincoln Cathedral, which when it was built had a spire on top of it, like Notre Dame, a lead-coated wooden spire, and that made it the tallest building in the world. And the fact it's also built on a hill means it's a spectacular sight and a beautiful building. And I guess that's the point of building a church in medieval times, or inspiring, can be seen from miles and miles around. I guess if you're a pilgrim and you're going to Lincoln, I mean, honestly, the fens, the area around Lincoln is pan flat. So if you come in from that direction on the you can see Lincoln from miles away, and that's the point, I suppose, isn't it? You build this huge building on a hill, so you can see it from inside the ground really clearly as well. It looms over the stadium, looking at it through the glass. So that's striking. The badge, though, is that I would assume, well, nobody knows for sure, a builder with an impish sense of humour decided when they were building it that he would carve an imp and put it in the roof of the cathedral. It's tiny. You have to know where to look, but once you do, you can't unsee it. It's exactly the same as the Lincoln badge. So Wikipedia it, the Lincoln imp. People actually buy little metal replicas to put on their house for good luck. It's supposed to be a good luck charm. But yes, there's a tiny little carving in the roof, in the ceiling, I beg your pardon, of Lincoln Cathedral. This massive building. The Lincoln imp is carved in there. There are other examples of people doing that. The one that strikes me at the straight away was, oh gosh, when Tottenham rebuilt, well, moved to their amazing new stadium. I'm sure it was this way round. One of the builders was an Arsenal fan. I'm sure it's this way around, and put an Arsenal shirt into the structure of the building, so there'd always be an Arsenal shirt in there. Which I find so petty, but yeah, for a football fan's mentality, rather pleasing. Right, that's it. Have a good week. I'll see you in 7 days. Keep those questions rolling in. And try and cope without having football. Watch a playoff. Why not? I've been Mark Griffiths from Wrexham FC.